Now it's time for the O'Hara News and Editorial. This is the show that brings you news through the lens of men's rights activism. Robert O'Hara and co-host James Huff bring you current events and important guests who will share their insights as well. We also invite the most important people to share their thoughts and experiences here on the one, you. This show invites callers to discuss the events of the week with the hosts and our guests. We want your involvement. So listen, call in, and experience the one show that gives it to you straight in a way no other media outlet will. Let's begin the O'Hara News and Editorial. Tonight, on the O'Hara News and Editorial, we have as our guest independent investigative journalist Davis Aurini, who will discuss Anita Sarkeesian and Gamergate. There's mounting controversy over whether or not Sarkeesian is pulling off a hoax in recent weeks with her announcement that she was forced from her home due to death threats and excessive online harassment. Last week, Dr. Phil Mason, aka Thunderfoot, had his Twitter account suspended on Sarkeesian's behalf, even though there was never an instance in which he threatened her in any way. This is an issue that has been closely watched by both MRAs and gamers alike, so we expect a good show. Please join us and call in to express your thoughts. And we're back with another edition of the O'Hara News and Editorial. I'm joined by my co-host, James Huff. James, how was your week?
Oh, it's great, man.
Good.
So
I had a
far.
good week too.
So far.
Yeah, so far. We got a good show tonight. We've got Davis Aurini on tonight. He is a famous critic of Anita Sarkeesian and Gamergate, and we're going to be talking at length with him about that whole controversy. It's going to be a good show. I think this is an interesting topic, and I know a lot of people are interested in what's going on in the gaming industry. Both men's rights activists and gamers alike have been watching what's going on and don't like what they see for very much the same reasons. And he's going to be joining us tonight to talk about it. But first, the first order of business, however, is, of course, as you might imagine, we have started our fall 2014 fundraiser. I must say that after the conference, we have found ourselves in not very good financial straits, but we're okay. But we really do need to recoup from that very, very expensive conference. And now is your chance to help out in doing that. The goal is $25,000 this quarter. We're optimistic that we will meet that. And let's just reflect on some of the things that we've accomplished here at AVFM over the past 5 years. We've engaged in some very important activism. We've helped out certain individuals with our Judicial Accountability Committee, which is a lot of work. That takes a lot of work, and we've succeeded in taking those cases and making them very high profile and actually getting things done. So there's a lot of people out there that say that we're do-nothings. This is not true. We've engaged in effective activism, and I don't like it when people try to avoid giving us credit for that, because it's just not true. But more importantly, and I put this not all that much more importantly, actually helping people out, which we do. More importantly, we have, for the first time in half a century, started to change the discourse about gender issues and things that affect men, and the entire discourse about men and women in our society. For so long, it has been unchallenged. Feminists have been unchallenged, and we have successfully challenged them. And we are seeing a difference. There's no doubt that AVFM, and of course we're not the only ones, but AVFM, I think, has really led the way in this respect. AVFM has been effective in making this change come about, and that is a big achievement, and I am proud to have been part of it. And I'm asking you all for your help. If you could please go to the donation page, we'll put it in the chat room. I'll also have a link on the soon-to-be-published YouTube video of this show to the donation page. Please consider giving anything that you can, even if it's just a couple bucks. We appreciate anything, and every penny means something. Please help us support our very important work here at A Voice for Men. And again, we appreciate any help you can give us. With that, we're going to go ahead and start the news off with James' first story. James, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, first coming out of the New York Post. We've got man suing New York City after being wrongly imprisoned for 14 years for rape. He slapped the city with a federal lawsuit Monday, alleging he was done in by false testimony from a housing authority detective. Johnny O'Neill of Suffolk County also names the city housing authority detective Jose Morales as a defendant in the lawsuit filed in Manhattan federal court Monday, and accuses the city of not properly training Morales and other officers on civil rights issues. Now, O'Neill was convicted of raping a woman at knife point in an Upper West Side rooftop in 1984, although he and 5 relatives said he had been at home watching TV. The DA offered O'Neill a 2-year plea deal if he copped to a lesser charge. He refused. The Legal Aid Society and the DA began re-examining the case 6 years ago and found that a since-deceased drug addict, Gregory Smith, likely committed the rape and 2 others. The DA's reinvestigation confirmed that the lead police officer assigned to the case, Morales, had lied while testifying during plaintiff's criminal trial, and in doing so bolstered the false testimony of the victim and her mother concerning the purported identification of plaintiff as the victim's assailant. So the Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Marciel Khan overturned the conviction in July of last year. The suit seeks unspecified money damages. The city declined to comment. What do you think? Uh-oh. Did we lose Robert?
Oh, I'm here. Sorry about that. I have my microphone muted. Well, I think we need more lawsuits like this. This is a classic example of how a false accusation unfolds, how police are not enough to say that they're improperly trained. They are basically given feminist indoctrination when in regards to rape cases, and of course they disregard basic civil rights, due process, withhold evidence. All this nonsense. This seems to be a particularly nasty case. But yeah, I hope that the guy sues, and I can't imagine why the city would want to comment on this. This is obviously good, and I hope that it is embarrassing for them. I hope they are embarrassed, and I really think this is, again, we need more lawsuits like this. It's the only way this is going to change. The only way this is going to change. Well. That's what I have to say about it. Other than that, I think the story speaks for itself. What do you think about it?
I'm looking forward to seeing lots more of these types of suits come up, especially with the Innocence Project doing their job.
Yeah, and it's weird, it seems to have been the habit in the past of men who were falsely accused of rape who were later exonerated to sort of just try to forget about it, to try to seek damages is... Well, for lack of a better way of putting it, is unmanly. I just want to. I'm over it. I just want to get on with my life. I don't think that's a correct way of thinking about it. It's important that you make people pay consequences. Your accuser, the police, the entire justice system. It's important that you make people pay consequences for wrongdoing, especially in this regard, because you have to make it hurt. If it doesn't hurt, nothing's going to change. And this is why I'm also very encouraged with what's happening in higher education, where these young men who are accused of sexual assault or misconduct, getting kicked out of school and having their lives destroyed. I'm really glad to see that there's a movement of lawsuits. Great stuff. Great stuff. Good luck to that guy. So, along the same vein, I have a story today coming from Archive Today. The University of Chicago gets its own rapist list. Story written by Katie Dries. This was published today at 2 p.m. In May, Columbia University students were up in arms after a list of alleged rapists attending the college kept popping up on the walls of a campus bathroom. It appears that now a similar, if slightly more technologically advanced tactic is being taken at the University of Chicago. Multiple University of Chicago students emailed Jezebel about a now defunct Tumblr called the Hyde Park List. The university is located in the Hyde Park neighborhood of Chicago, which seems to have been taken down as quickly as it started. The first post looks like it was put up this weekend, but by Sunday evening, the Tumblr was gone. According to an email sent from concerned Chicago students at gmail.com to Jezebel, the Tumblr, quote, lists students who have sexually harassed and or sexually assaulted peers. Though an email sent to the address made available on the Tumblr requesting comment has not received a response. First years just arrived on campus for orientation week, though the school year had not yet officially begun. But flyers about the Tumblr are still circulating. Those flyers list the names of 6 current and former University U of Chicago students. All appear to be men and do or did go to the college. After each name, the person is given a color, code orange or code red. According to a cached version of the Tumblr, it was started by a group of, quote, concerned citizens who are, quote, keeping the community safe since the university won't. The names listed on the Tumblr don't appear to have any further information attached to them than the accuser's name, class year, code orange or code red. Though at least one includes this message. Note often at fraternity parties. That message was quoted as saying. This goes on. This is again another example of this business where you have this anonymous group of people or anonymous reporting form where people are anonymously accused of committing these terrible crimes, and they get their names posted everywhere. And what's the end of this? Is this? I mean, obviously they're pissing these guys off. They're ruining their lives, and this is a life ruining ordeal when people go through this. You get branded a rapist. The only thing you have to do is to have some anonymous person call you one, and all of a sudden your name's out there, and it's appalling. But Chicago, the University of Chicago, happens to be one of those schools that's under investigation by the education department for Title IX violations. This is a witch hunt that's going on right now. So it's not like the college is going to find out who these kids are making these unsubstantiated claims of assault and sexual assault. They're not going to. They're probably going to look the other way. I mean, they're not going to find out who these students are. And clearly, this is a form of harassment when you accuse somebody anonymously. Clearly, that should be classified as student misconduct. Clearly, but the school won't do anything, and because hey, they're on this whole Title IX bandwagon. This is a witch hunt, and and these poor guys. They've been called rapists. What are they going to do? And how are they going to find out who it is? And we talked about suing people. How are they going to find out who it is that's making these accusations? It's incredibly unfair. But people do it. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of this in the future because this is where we're going. And it's going to be pretty soon. The schools themselves are going to be running these lists.
Well,
of anonymous reports.
Of course, because
pretty soon the schools are going to be actually going to have on their website.
The social justice warriors are never happy with the law. Well, let me rephrase that.
Or due process.
Cops are pigs until cops are pigs until you need them, right?
Right. Yeah. This is whole attack on due process. They want to bypass it. And now this is how this is what they call holding these alleged rapist, quote, accountable. Does the person who's making the accusation not have any accountability? Don't they have to? Don't these people have a right to face their accusers before they're branded for life as rapists? It's appalling. And pretty soon, schools may be required to do this anonymous reporting scheme. They may actually be required to do this. This is what the task force on sexual assault on college campuses actually suggested in their publication that was released from the White House itself. This is the highest levels of government we're talking about here in May. It's scary stuff. And it's got to be checked, man. This is bad. This is, again, this whole erosion of due process is a bad thing. That's all I got to say about that. So, James, if you don't have anything to say about this anymore, we're going to go on to your next story.
I think you've hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah,
well, this is coming from Wesh.com in Orlando. WESH. Deputies. Woman assaulted boyfriend, smeared fake blood on herself. Yeah. Flagler County woman is accused of threatening her boyfriend with a knife and then putting fake blood on herself to get him arrested, according to investigators. Emily Jones, 24, held a knife to the victim's cheek, threatened to stab him in his sleep at the home on Brunswick Lane in Palm Coast on Thursday. Then she called 911, said that the victim was drunk and had beaten her. But when deputies arrived, they determined the victim had not been drinking or had hurt Jean. Deputies said Jean had smeared red paint on her ear and chest. Told them it was blood. She was not injured. Investigators said Jean became violent after a boyfriend confronted her about naked pictures she had sent to another man and said she was incapable of love. She was arrested and charged with aggravated assault. This is where it's going. This is where it's going.
Yeah.
We're painting the roses red. We're painting the roses red. I mean, holy crap, man. This is really?
Mm. Yeah,
wow.
Really.
Wow.
Oh. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. That's almost as bad as hitting yourself in the face and then chipping your tooth while you're drunk or something.
Yeah, right.
And then claiming you were like jumped out of bushes and beaten or something like that. You know.
Well, this is not an unusual story. I mean, people. We hear, you see reports about this in the things like this in the media all the time. People still want to say, "Oh, it's incredibly rare for a woman to falsely accuse someone of rape." It's incredibly common. It happens all the time. And unfortunately, there are people out there who will go through great lengths to try to get someone thrown in jail for a horrible crime they didn't do. And that's why we have these things called due process and the right to face your accuser in court of law. That's why we have the presumption of innocence. And it's a classic example of why we need all those things. Classic example. All right. In the news today, Emma Watson, famous actor of the Harry Potter series, who just recently gave a speech at the UN to shove off a effort called He for She, something that started, it's a movement for gender equality. It bills itself, named He for She. It is it's organized by UN Women, an organization within the UN that is growing popular, unfortunately, because they're a bunch of feminists. And of course, you can imagine it's trying to enlist men into getting them involved in the discussion of gender equality and promoting gender equality, of course, what feminists call gender equality. And she had a speech at the UN, which was very well received. However, already, Emma Watson has been threatened by hackers after celebrated UN He for She speech. Already, U.S. Weekly reports. This came out today at 1 p.m. The article is written by Madeline Boardman. Emma Watson just got hit with the exact kind of discrimination, sexism, and hate speech that she is fighting against. The Noah actress, 24, made her voice heard this past weekend by standing up in front of a group at the United Nations in New York City to speak in support of feminist causes, and was swiftly punished for it. The well-spoken star made headlines on Saturday, September 20th, when she gave a thoughtful, expressive speech at the UN Women Goodwill as the UN Women Goodwill ambassador, launching the He for She campaign. As news of her empowering words spread, Watson was met with a strong backlash from an online community. Users of 4chan, an anonymous internet sharing forum, threatened to release compromising photos of Watson as retaliation for her stance. Though they have since been removed, derogatory messages about the actress promised to release nudes as a direct punishment. Quote, it's a real and going to happen this weekend, one since deleted post reportedly read. Quote, that feminist bitch Emma is going to show the world she is as much of a whore as any woman. Another passage reportedly added, quote, she makes stupid feminist speeches at UN, and now her news will be online. Ha 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 ha. Though the words are no longer available, users made a website with a countdown clock threatening the actress that she is, quote, next, adorned with the 4chan logo. The site shows a photo of Watson crying and includes the foreboding message, quote, never forget the biggest to come thus far. The warning is likely in reference to the recent string of celebrity nude photo leaks, which hit stars including Jennifer Lawrence, Vanessa Hudgens, and Kim Kardashian. It's the form of aggression and misogyny that Watson decried during her UN speech, explaining her path to identifying as a feminist, which included being sexualized by certain elements of the media. At the age of 14, Watson said, quote, I decided that I was a feminist. This seemed uncomplicated to me, but my recent research has shown me that feminism has become an unpopular word. Women are choosing not to identify as feminists, apparently. Women's expression is seen as too strong, too aggressive, isolating, and anti-men, unattractive even. Now, we've heard this story before. Now, at best, I can only assume that these guys, at most, I can only assume that these people who posted these comments on 4chan, of all places, are, like most people on 4chan, just a bunch of trolls. You know, that's all they are. And, you know, they said some nasty stuff. Ooh, people are saying nasty stuff about a public figure. Oh, big, huge crime. And they're supposedly they're threatening to release nude photos of Watson. Now, this just, and we're talking about hashtag Gamergate tonight with our guest and Anita Sarkeesian. We've seen how this all plays out before. This is they're spreading hysteria. I personally think that whenever I see something like this, that maybe not all of it, but there's a good chance that some of it is contrived. That these people putting comments up there are actually they're posing, they're hoaxsters, and you know we've seen the formula over and over again, and the press jumps on this, and you know of course they're just trying to hype up hysteria. Oh, somebody said something nasty about this girl on 4chan, and we're supposed to. This is evidence of a huge problem with misogyny in our society. No, it's not. They're a bunch of trolls, and you know your trolls are no more important than our trolls. They're not. But you know we'll be talking about this later on with our guest, who I'm looking very much forward to talk to. But James, what do you think about this? What is your
I'll believe it
analysis
when
of
I
this?
see it. Seriously.
Yeah. I believe when I see it, and I didn't. They didn't have a link to this alleged website that had the ticking down clock. They didn't have that. So does that exist? I don't know. They put up some of these comments here, but okay, they're comments on 4chan of all places. Really? And they made it. They made a huge news story out of this. How stupid! How dumb! Really, really stupid. But they're just using this to promote this new thing, he for she. Getting men involved in feminism is really important. Incidentally, looking at their Facebook page, they already have 90,000 likes, and I think the Facebook page has only been around for, couldn't have been too long. So it seems to be thriving pretty well. Again, I'm going to put the link to this Facebook page here in the chat room. Maybe you guys have your own thoughts about this matter you might want to share with these people. Don't say anything too nasty. But seriously.
You know what?
It just
we need to go ahead and go to a music break right now so we can pull in our guest, because
okay.
I just got a message from Mr. Aurini here. He says he's got some breaking news about that countdown clock.
Oh, okay, great. Wonderful. Let's go to music break and we'll bring him right on.
All right. Well, folks, we will be back in about 4 minutes, and here we go.
And we're back with the O'Hara News editorial, and we are joined by our guest, Mr. Davis Aurini. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Is that correct, Davis?
Yeah, it's Aurini, like the word aura.
Aurini.
Very pleased to be here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started with Anita Sarkeesian and Gamergate, you have some news about the Emma Watson story that we just brought up before the music break. You said that you had some a development, or rather, have some information about the website that was mentioned in the article on U.S. Weekly, written by Madeline Boardman. Tell us what's going on with that website.
Well, and this is breaking news, so it's not absolutely positive yet, but this does look to be the case. And it's not for me; it's from the internet in general. I was tweeting about it earlier. The people behind this supposed exposure of Emma Watson, it's a company called Rantic Marketing, and it's not. They are not a marketing company. What they are is a scam company that generates clickbait for themselves. They did a very similar thing a month or two ago about Brian from Family Guy. And so they have a bunch of fake newspapers. 90% of the articles are stolen from other news sources. And then once in a while, they're like, we need to generate some revenue. So they create this fake harassment of Emma Watson. They create a fake article about how 4chan did it. And big circle, everybody's running around, and they collect profit. They do not have an agenda. They are just... Like, I really, really feel like I'm living in a cyberpunk world at this point, where it's like, some of the people in this war aren't even fighting for an ideology. They are just out there to make some money.
Right, they're mercenaries. Mercenary trolls, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, I mean, but it's also interesting, and I definitely want to bring this up. It's interesting how the news media, doesn't waste any time latching on to this fake website as if it were real and making a hysterical news story out of it without doing any investigation, without even caring. I'm sure that even if you told this Madeline Boardman woman, hey, these guys who have this thing set up, they're just a bunch of hoaxsters making money. It's not real. She would not retract it or report that it is in fact fake. She would definitely roll right along with it because U.S. Weekly is getting ad revenue too from this kind of stuff. And definitely these people, feminists definitely take every advantage of every single opportunity like this to create hysteria and further their own cause, and they do it in a very cynical way. So it's
it reminds me of that. There's the one feminist. I think she was talking about one of these, like the Duke case, one of these false rape claims. And she was saying, even if the guy's innocent, it could still do him a lot of good to go to jail for a rape he didn't commit. And it's they seem to have the same attitude. Even if this news isn't real, the public could benefit by being worked up into a hysteria over something that absolutely never happened.
But before we go on any further, I want to formally introduce you and your work and what you're all about. You are a trained historian. You are a citizen journalist. And you operate a blog by the name of, Staring Out at the World?
Stares at the World.
Stares at the World, yes. And you've become kind of popular as a YouTuber. And you're working on this movie called The Sarkeesian Effect. And you've been doing some investigation into the whole Sarkeesian, Anita Sarkeesian thing, what her whole shtick is all about, and you're kind of trying to uncover her activities in a factual manner because no one else in the mainstream media will. What made you get really interested in what's going on in Gamergate, and particularly with Anita Sarkeesian? I do know that you're a gamer, but what kind of prompted you to want to put together this film and expose her for how you feel she really is?
Well, the original seed for this film came 2 months ago, long before Gamergate, when I was working on a short film at the time, and my friend Jordan Owen, and it's like we've become friends because we disagree on absolutely everything, but we have very honest, good arguments about it, and there's so few people you can do that with. Anyway, he says to me that we should really do a documentary about Anita Sarkeesian, about this methodology that she uses, not to truly critique anything. Like, there's no genuine or honest critique behind her, but there's just a system of manipulation to achieve power and control over an industry that she doesn't care about. You know, she's not a gamer herself. She just wants to control what other people are doing. And the thing is that we have had, like, everybody and their kid brother has taken down Anita Sarkeesian at some time, whether it's like on YouTube, on a blog, or even just in comment sections. I think everybody has pointed out what an absolutely dishonest argument it is that she's presenting to the world. And nobody cares. And this is why we, 2 months ago, we're like, you know what, yes, a documentary. Like a real official documentary, IMDb page, Wikipedia citations. All of a sudden, they'd have to acknowledge that there is disagreement, and it's valid disagreement with Miss Sarkeesian.
Well, this is interesting. First of all, she's made a lot of money doing this. I don't know how much money she's made in total, but she's certainly made a lot of money in donations to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And also, it's
just interesting. Recent information suggests that game developers were strongly pressured to support her when she started her Kickstarter.
Of course, that's the old trick. You have a problem with your industry. I'm going to create this fantastic image of the gaming industry and all these companies making these terrible games, and they're going to give me money, or else I'm going to rake them over the coals. That's a trick that's been used by social justice warriors for a long time now. That goes back to the '60s, with some cynical figures in the civil rights movement, actually. But yeah,
we see it in breast cancer as well, which was
we're seeing this. We're seeing this in the NFL right now too. What's going to happen is all these NFL teams and these NFL players are basically going to be pressured into just giving the National Organization of Women money, and then that's the only way that they're going to get them to shut up and stop making it out to where all these guys are a bunch of wife beaters. It's completely ridiculous, and none of that money is going to go towards helping victims of domestic violence, half of whom are men, by the way. And no, it's just going to go in these people's pockets. That's how these people operate. They do it over and over and over again. It's happening in the education system, happening in the military. This is how they operate.
Look at the breast cancer thing was originally about prevention, and there's no money in prevention. Nowadays, it's been taken over by, I don't want to say the corporations, but moneyed interests. Everybody's out for their piece of the pie. It's not about curing breast cancer. The money being thrown at breast cancer is way too much when there's other cancers that are affecting more people. It's a feely-good bunch of nonsense. And you know what? The toxic psychopaths and monsters, they can always find a role in that corporation. The National Organization for Women, plenty of misandric monsters in that. Because, who cares? Just toss them a job. As long as it looks like they're doing something, we don't care about the victims. We don't care about the innocent men accused. We don't care about anybody. Just keep the gravy train rolling. And she's a monster. She wants to destroy men. Good. Give her a job. She'll make us look busy.
Right. They'll give us like we're actually doing something with our time. But this is what we call in the men's rights movement. This is the kind of person we call rent-seeking scum, and this is mostly what feminists aspire to do, to get a job somewhere for some DV shelter or some DV organization or breast cancer organization, and they don't help anybody. They just collect a paycheck. And they oftentimes do that by muckraking and misinformation and whipping up hysteria when there's no need for there to be any hysteria. It's the cynicism that is present amongst feminists is just it's stunning. It's stunning.
Yeah, I was watching that Emma Watson thing, and it's like, how pig ignorant do you have to be as a human being to see this multimillionaire 21-year-old woman harping on about 24? Yeah, early
she's a kid.
20s.
Yeah,
she doesn't know anything. She's not a philosopher. She's an actress. And hey, I work with actors and actresses. Maybe I shouldn't make fun of them, but you don't have to get fun of them. It's what? Same with musicians. Musicians are brilliant, but being a musician does not mean jack about Jack.
about anything else. Yeah, but it's because they're public figures, they're celebrities. People project all kinds of qualities upon them that they simply do not possess. Um,
How much are we as taxpayers throughout the world paying per minute for all of those delegates to sit there in the UN and listen to her prattle on about Feminism 101?
Yeah, so she could start off this organization, he for she, and it's going to be about getting men interested in feminism. I mean,
is there no other organization doing that? I mean, was there the market just? Again, we haven't had any feminist charities. We need to go in front of the UN for feminist charity.
How long is the list of feminist charities and nonprofit organizations? I mean, it's and the reason that it's so voluminous is because this is how these people make their money. There's money in this, a lot of money in feminism, and it's interesting. And I saw want to touch on this is you see this co-option, this astroturfing and co-option of other movements, other popular things like gaming, like the NFL, like the atheist community that's been all but completely co-opted by these social justice warriors, atheism plus people. You see this, it's like there's no area of life that they will not try, or area of life or area in culture that they won't try to co-opt and make their own. And the reasons I see for this is, first of all, they're finding out a way to make money somehow by making something their own, like the gaming industry. And this way they can control the discourse over just about anything they want to where this idea of feminism permeates everywhere and it can't be questioned. Immediately after you get these people come in, the first things they do is they start enacting censorship policies and start accusing people of threatening them, so we can't let them talk. You saw this happen in the atheist community, and it's just appalling. The first thing that goes is your freedom of speech. Look what happened to Thunderfoot. He got his Twitter account suspended. His Twitter account was suspended. Why? Because it's all Anita Sarkeesian and her cadre of people, that basically mobbed him on Twitter and had him suspended. What did he do? He has never threatened her in any way. He has been, however, the most effective critic of hers. He has been the most popular critic of hers. More people have watched his videos about Anita Sarkeesian than any other individual. And this is why he was censored. And this is censorship. This really is censorship. How do these? You just have to ask yourself. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was just going to say, what it boils down to is that their arguments cannot withstand scrutiny, and so this is why they're censoring. It's like they don't even have the decency of being like a theocratic regime that says that you must believe in this thing. At least they actually believe in it. The reason that these people, the social justice movement, censor speech is simply because they know perfectly well that they don't have a thread to hold on to, that just the slightest bit of thoughtful analysis destroys all of the nonsense that they say.
Right. It's incredibly threatening for them. Let's talk about the gaming industry and what's been going on. We've heard the story of Zoe Quinn has basically, and the journalists that cover the gaming industry. We heard that a journalist, a very popular and up until now well-read and well-respected journalist that covered the gaming industry, was found to have had sex with Zoe Quinn, which is a serious breach of journalistic rules. You don't have sex with people that you report on. And he started promoting her new game. What's that game she just came up with? Is about depression and what I can't remember the name. But anyway.
Quest. Choose your own adventure.
Depression Quest, right? Yeah. But so this is a huge deal, and people are starting to see how these shameless publicists are just sort of doing whatever they want and engaging in censorship, as we just talked about, started whipping up hysteria. In your opinion, and I'm not a huge gamer myself, I used to play. I used to do a lot of gaming when when I was younger, but just not so much now. I just haven't gotten into it lately, and I'm certainly not a gamer person. I don't engage in the forums. I don't talk with a lot of people. I don't read the publications. In your opinion, what is the actual percentage of people who buy into this nonsense, to this whole idea, the Anita Sarkeesian's nonsense, Zoe Quinn's nonsense? How many people that are avid gamers or actual journalists in the gaming industry, about how many people are really taken in by this small group of people? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Or is it 5%, in your opinion?
Well, amongst actual gamers, my guess would be about 10%. Because, seriously, the people that are making games, the people that are playing games, everybody knows that what she's saying is a load of bull. But the problem is that everybody thinks that everybody else believes in it. And it's only it's only now with Gamergate that the sheer number of people that are disgusted by this are speaking out. But the real influence that she's having is not over the gamers or the developers of video games. It's over the public perception of things.
Right.
Her videos are targeted at people that do not play games to manipulate them into thinking games are whatever she says.
Misogynistic, right? And this is This is very hurtful towards the gaming industry, towards the people who produce games, and towards gamers themselves, who are just mostly a bunch of men, basically, for the most part, not all, but mostly men, who just enjoy engaging in this fun pastime, an escape from a lot of things, and then there's this real intrusion and this real public smearing, this public shellacking that these guys are getting right now. And if I were a gamer, I would be infuriated and very hurt and insulted, and it's no wonder this woman has so many people saying so many nasty things about her. It's got to be frustrating to have these guys, for these guys like Thunderfoot and the Amazing Atheists and a lot of other people in the gaming community who are speaking up about this and making YouTube videos about it and writing articles about it. It's got to be frustrating for them to see their own work being used as so-called evidence that they are misogynist or that there's this huge problem in the gaming world, when there's really not. There's no misogyny. Or you know what? There's always you were mentioning that the hateful little trolls. There's always the hateful little trolls in every community. These broken, nasty little creeps, and there's like a dozen of them. But they are the loudest voices, and they're not even gamers. If you took away gaming from them, they'd go find a different hobby. They're just there to be nasty little people spewing filth at the world. People, instigators and trolls on the internet. They're everywhere on the internet. It's part of being on the internet, and that's always been the case. But somehow this behavior now.
All of a sudden, we need to know these people just attack you any way they can. It's like I was I'm constantly banning these idiots because they're not productive. There's no point in responding to them, and they will come on each time. They come in waves, they kind of disappear for a while, and then you do something that gets their attention, so you get a dozen of them all at once, and they will come on and they will try and hurt you any way they can. They'll say you're gay, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're a virgin. Or you hate your mom.
Yeah.
They will just keep listing things. Because if you do that for long enough, eventually you will find something that someone's sensitive about.
Right. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a cheap shot.
Yeah. Exactly. So if you're a woman and they're trying to make you feel pain, they will attack you for being a woman, or they'll make these rape jokes, rape threats, not because of anything they believe, but just because it's a cheap shot. That's not misogyny. That's just being a horrible person.
And of course, this is not the normal representative of the normal average person who's into the gaming community. They're not. These guys are they're trolls.
Yeah, they don't even care about the games. If they thought for 5 minutes they'd realize what they're doing is bad for gaming. They don't care about gaming. They're just
Right.
there to be nasty people. Yeah, but
Let's talk more. Let's talk
Mhm.
more about Gamergate and how it's how it started, how it's evolved. It mostly came out of the Anita Sarkeesian thing, but also with the Zoe Quinn thing. Obviously, this is a movement of people who are fed up and are getting frustrated with what's happening to their hobby, to their industry. And a lot of people have written some interesting things about it. One, I can't remember who it was, but one guy wrote an article about how basically these social justice warriors are a bunch of bullies, and they've descended on this community, and they need to be kicked out, or they called on their bullcrap. And it wasn't, but you get people saying these things, and people who support the criticism that these people are writing about. But at the same time, you have all these white knights, and all these, again, social justice warriors just pouncing on anybody who has any criticism at all of Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn or what's happening with these social justice warriors. How do you see this panning out in the future? Do you think this is going to be that this is going to go down the same road as the atheist community, where all of a sudden these people are going to get themselves established in the community and there's no getting rid of them? Or do you think eventually people will get fed up with this whole business and you just won't hear about Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn anymore after a couple of years? How do you think it's going to play out?
I honestly think this is where we start pushing back, where the sane, common sense people finally start pushing back against this insanity that we've been just being immersed in for 50 years. Like the latest thing with them trying to take over video gaming. We saw them do it in the tech circles. We saw them doing it with the atheist cult people. We saw them doing it with the universities, with the media. Like every other institution in society has been taken over, and now they're trying to do it with video games. And it's absolutely ridiculous that this is over video games, but I think this is where we finally take a stand. And everybody, and you know what? I am communicating with liberals and conservatives and feminists and like the minority of sane feminists, socialists, so on. All the people that's like, hey, you know what? We want to have an argument about things, okay? We want to argue about our politics, argue about our belief systems. These people, these social justice warriors, they don't want to argue. They don't have beliefs. They just want to destroy and control and make a profit. And I think this is finally it. This is the tipping point. We've had enough, and gamers have been seeing this going on more and more, just little bits, a little bit of censorship on a forum, a little bit of Tumblrites saying, you need to be a little bit more sensitive. Can't say that. You're going to hurt someone's feelings. A little bit of Sarkeesian getting more and more creeping influence into the video game industry. And the exposure of the extent of the collusion going on in video game journalism, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like at this point, Zoe Quinn is barely a part of the story anymore. She's just yet another example of a broken, manipulative person in the gaming industry. And people are sick of it. And not just with gaming, but with atheism, with all of this. We're sick of all of this being taken over by the loudest crybabies that just want to control and make money at other people's expense.
Oh, did we lose Robert there?
I'm still here. Sorry. Keep on.
Okay, yeah.
Muting my microphone and forgetting to put it back on. Let's talk about your this movie you're trying to put together, and talk about specifically Anita Sarkeesian. Maybe we just spend a time focusing on her for a moment. Tell us what you know about her history, and what motivates her, and what you think she's trying to accomplish. Specifically, Anita Sarkeesian. I know that she is a communications major. That's where she got her undergraduate in communications. She got her master's in some weird. I can't remember what the name was. It might even have been called social justice theory or some crazy thing like that. Useless degree that apparently she's making a lot of money with now. And we know she's actually been caught red-handed saying that she's not a gamer. And she was also Thunderfoot actually had a clip of her at some conference where she was talking about publicizing issues and making money doing it. And it's so obviously, I mean, it's almost you really can't make it any more obvious that this woman has always been disingenuous, has never been real with anybody, but she's taken in so many people, and she's become this symbol. She's become this symbol of victimhood for social justice warriors and feminists. What do you think about her history, and what motivates her specifically? And
well,
go ahead.
I can't talk too much about some of the stuff we need to keep under wraps until we make the documentary. You know, like some of our sources, I don't want to reveal anything about them yet.
Right.
But like I'll say this much, just as a rhetorical question. Do you think that she just one day woke up and said, I should make a completely fake critique of a field I don't play, professing to be a feminist, even though I'm, hardly a feminist, and do this to make money? Do you think that just came out of nowhere? And do you think she's never been involved in any weird situations in her past? And,
I would say no. I mean, I would say that she definitely has. I mean, people who do this kind of thing, they tend to make it's what they do in life. It's kind of like their mode of operations.
Now, if you want my 2-bit psychoanalysis of her, whether or not I'm good at psychoanalysis, I'll leave that up for you, up for others to judge. I tend to think I'm pretty bloody good at it. You can see it in her face. It's the exact same thing that you see in the face of that Elliot Rodgers kid. Somebody at some point in her youth did something absolutely horrible to her. Somebody hurt her. Somebody told her that she was useless, she was worthless, her soul was garbage, and she believed them. And so now she is just an empty shell of destructive force going out into the world. I don't know what specifically happened, but it was, you know what? And it's context too. Like the same thing probably happened to you, but it was water off a duck's back. Didn't hurt you. But the way it happened, who said it to her, the situation where it all came together was just a nuclear bomb to her soul. So that's my 2-bit analysis of her.
Right. All right, so you don't have to talk about this. Anything, if there's anything you don't want to talk about, just let me know, because I know that you're putting together this video. But let's talk a little bit about this this accusation she made that she was getting death threats. Now, you recently tried to contact the police department in the town in which she lives, and they said initially, because you had a video of this posted on your blog as well as your YouTube channel, where you were speaking with the officer, the public relations officer, and initially they did not have a report of anything happening on the date that she says it happened, but there was something before. And of course she has been accusing the police of not being professional, of victim blaming and all this other stuff, and obviously the police do not do that when they get reports of death threats. They take them very seriously. But
I'm sure there's some cops somewhere in all of Western civilization that did brush off a woman at one point. I'm sure that cop exists.
Sure,
but it is such a rarity. Last time a cop did this, we got a slut walk.
Yeah, sure.
Good way to lose your job, Officer Bonobo, if that's what you did.
Yeah,
but
sure, yeah. Well, I mean, we hear this charge all the time from feminists that victim blaming or whatnot. Even women who it's been shown have lied to the police. And one of their first charges, one of their first defense is, they're victim blaming me. No, they're not. They're asking you questions. They have to do an investigation. They have to collect evidence. They have to gather facts. It's what they do. And this has been seen as, quote, victim blaming. Now, I don't know. I read your update on this, and apparently there was a report on the time that she said it happened. Is that correct?
You know what? There's nothing but questions with this whole thing.
Okay.
So,
yeah. See, but we know that the FBI is looking into it now, right? But they won't say anything about it. Neither will the police.
See, initially this all came up because she got some very suspicious and convenient death threats. And somehow she managed to screen cap this 13 seconds after the final one was posted, even though she wasn't logged into Twitter. This has caused some to speculate that she wrote the tweets herself, at herself, with a fake, with a sock puppet, logged out, then screen capped it. We do not have proof that this happened, but it seems, well, I don't know, maybe she just happened to type that URL. Maybe her screen grab plugin wasn't active with her main browser, so she switched to the other. I don't know. It's suspicious. And then
it is suspicious.
And then we find out, I think this is really the point that I was trying to make, is that we all assumed that if she got death threats and claimed that she filed a police report, she actually filed a police report. After all of these mainstream media outlets, like the Telegraph, wrote an article about this. And we assumed they'd contacted the police, especially in light of her allegations that the police were brushing her off. What we found out, but when I contacted Esparza, what we found out, it seems like we are the very first people. Amateur journalists, bloggers. In fact, I hate to call ourselves amateur because we're the only ones with journalistic ethics in all of this.
Yeah, right. No one ever thought to. Yeah, nobody
contacted the police department. So that's the real story right there. So even if there was a report filed and Esparza couldn't find it because, I don't know, he was having an off day. Even if there was a report filed, the point is the media never investigated it when Anita accused the police of behaving unprofessionally. And now Anita seems to be pulling back from those claims. Esparza is not being forthcoming at all. I did send him a follow-up email. A lot of other people have emailed him. He's sick of dealing with it, and I think they realize that this is a hot potato. The police do not want to touch. They don't care about the politics. They're not getting charged in the media as being horrible human beings, so it's irrelevant. They don't want to touch it. There's no information forthcoming until who is it? Breitbart. He works for Breitbart. He is doing a Freedom of Information request with the FBI to find out what the heck they're doing.
I see. Okay, great. That may take some time to come through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And by the time it comes through, everyone will have forgotten it, and the mainstream media won't care. If it's in time for our documentary, we're bloody putting it in there. You better believe that.
Yeah. Oh, we'll put it up there too. We'll talk about it. So it's not going to be completely forgotten.
We're tenacious. We don't let go. We're like a pit bull.
So there's so much to suggest that Anita Sarkeesian is what they used to call a grifter, someone who who wipes up hysteria and acts in their own interest and profits from it. What do you think is the potential here if she was found to have falsely report that she was threatened, and they find if in fact they were contrived and they have enough evidence to indict her. What do you think the potential is for an actual charge of, let's say, wire fraud to happen? Because she's benefited off of this. She's definitely made money from this whole thing. Every step of the way, every move that she's made has been proven to give her donation money and whatnot. And God knows how else she makes money doing this. I'm sure she's figured out a way to do it. But what do you think the potential is for that at this point? I know that's a big question and a lot of conjecture,
it's
but
actually pretty decent. It's like Jordan, Owen, and I, we were talking at the very beginning about how we're going to do the finances of this whole thing. And it's all above board for the record, okay? Like this is what our concern was. You might have noticed that the Tea Party just disappeared almost overnight, right in the years leading up to the 2012 election. And that's because the IRS decided to target them. Now, the people, the sort of ideology that Anita represents is the same sort of leftist, Marxist, postmodernist belief system that underlies the manipulation of politics.
Yeah.
But these are very different heads of the Hydra. And so the Hydra heads, like the different elements, will occasionally attack each other. And if the IRS sees a payday in destroying Anita for clear wire fraud, yeah, I'd give it a 50-50 chance, especially if we manage to absolutely destroy her credibility and demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that this woman, what I don't even know what feminism means, but if there's any positive definition of feminist, Anita is not that. You know? And really that's kind of our goal with the documentary. It's the Sarkeesian Effect, because like this is the methodology, this grifter methodology that you mentioned. This has been used in so many places, and it's that methodology that we want to expose so that the general public will, hopefully be a little bit more aware next time a grifter comes along and starts playing head games with them. Not just in gaming, not just in Gamergate, not just in the tech circles, but in the media as well.
Where am I going to go on to from this night? Let's talk about Zoe Quinn now. We focus on her a little bit more. To what extent do you think she's cut out of the same cloth as Anita Sarkeesian?
Well, I think
there's feminist ideology is very strong there, and there seems to be a co-effort and co-option of the gaming industry in that regard. But what distinguishes her from Sarkeesian and what she's trying to accomplish?
Well, I think you got to give Sarkeesian her dues. She is extremely intelligent, and she has a lot of self-control. She has made very few tactical errors in all of this. Like that video of her saying she wasn't a gamer, complete accident that surfaced. She probably didn't even remember it being recorded.
Right.
There have been a couple of other little, like she did retweet a story about murdering a developer, even though she's complaining about receiving death threats. All right, that was a tactical error. But I can count on one hand how many errors she's made. Zoe Quinn is, quite frankly, she is not that smart, and she lacks self-control. The fact that she has, well, to be blunt, she has gained a lot of weight since she did the nude modeling. And this is indicative of a lack of self-control. Or maybe she has a disease. I don't know. The fact that she's cheating on her boyfriend with 5 guys also suggests a little bit of
right,
and
impetuous decision.
And then
having sex with a reporter, having sex with a reporter is not, that definitely with an influential reporter, and then asking him to help press her to help plug her new product. That's another thing that's a big red flag there. It's like, hey, what are you thinking? Did you think people were going to find this out? That's a big mistake. It really is.
She's dumb.
Yeah.
And what else? And the fact that back in high school she was a lesbian, and now she's not anymore. Like the girl's mentally ill. Yeah, and actually that's just this kind of speaks. You were mentioning the white knights and this generation, not just the millennials, but the Gen Xers, we are the weakest, most pathetic and broken humans that history has ever seen. We're all of these game journalists that are doing all of this malfeasance. It's because they are children. They think they're playing a game. They didn't realize. I turned 18 and I realized, serious business from here henceforth. If I get arrested, I go to real prison. This sticks with me the rest of my life. This is life or death. I'm an adult now. These people are in their mid-20s. They're 30 years old, 40 years old. They are still acting like irresponsible children that think they can do whatever they want and they don't have to follow ethical codes. Ugh, lovely world.
back to Sarkeesian. She is the way she's dealt with this, and let's talk about her self-control. She does have a tremendous amount of self-control, but she has responded to this whole to what basically amounts to her exposure as a fraud. She has responded to this in a very again, very cynical, but again in a very intelligent way, by, of course, pulling out all the old feminist, standard responses, like saying it's just completely radical to believe women when they talk about their experiences. And again, and I'm quoting her from a speech that she made recently at a conference. I can't remember the name of the conference, but it was a huge deal. She got a standing ovation. She got. Yeah, and it's a bunch of social justice warriors. That's what the conference was comprised of, and and she also said that these people that are attacking me think that they're part of some noble cause. This really, in my opinion, underscores her sociopathy. When people start complaining, "Hey, this Anita Sarkeesian woman is lying. She's engaging in censorship. Why should we just stand by and do nothing and let her destroy our community and make a buck at it and be a ripoff artist?" And it's amazing how she can project how good of a job she's done. And she did this. Of course, she was in front of the right audience. I mean, the whole thing was the whole show was pulled off perfectly. It could not have been done in a more expert manner.
No,
but
for the record,
again,
I don't think she's actually a psychopath. She acts like one, but she knows what she's doing. She's intentionally putting on the mantle of a psychopath to manipulate. And quite frankly, a psychopath would be less destructive. Like, a psychopath is just always manipulating everything because they can't help themselves. She's outright trying to destroy everything she touches, and she's just using these methodologies. It's
well, the cynicism
terrible. It's ugly.
It's very ugly, but cynicism is the word that keeps on coming up to mind. I think in such a cynical way, manipulate people and profit from it, and be totally cool with it. Like, hey, girls got to do something for a living. That's honestly what I think she thinks to herself. But the thing is that even though she's very, very carefully orchestrated a response that has worked pretty well so far, she's got to be feeling the heat now. She, like you said, she's not stupid. She's got to by now be saying, okay, I need to find an exit strategy, or maybe she's talking to a lawyer right now. What do you think that's what she's doing? That she's do you think at some point she's just gonna come to the realization that she can't maintain this facade any longer?
Well, you know what? That's the funny thing is, I guarantee you that she's going to come out of this scot-free. Like, if in the perfect world, the Sarkeesian Effect has the impact that I want it to, if we really just expose and burn these people not smearing. Okay, we are not they're the ones that smear others, that spread libel about them, that do all of that. We refuse to do that. We are not going to stoop to their level. But if the light of truth burns them, then so be it. So that's said. If this documentary turns out amazingly, if we get a 10 out of 10 on it, then there's going to be a lot of people that are burned by it. A lot of people who have destroyed their futures as journalists, as game developers, as what have you. Sarkeesian won't be one of those people. I guarantee you she is smart enough to slime her way into something else. It's partly related. I, for no reason, was just looking into the Kent State shootings, the 4 dead in Ohio. The people that actually got shot, the 4 that died, and the students that didn't die from the bullet wounds, they were the useful idiots. They weren't the people that burned down the ROTC building on campus. All right, the actual instigators of the student riot. These poor dumb students that thought it was okay to throw rocks at police officers and soldiers, and that it wouldn't eventually result in them using those guns.
Somebody getting shot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea not to provoke cops, guys. These were the useful idiots. and the people behind this whole thing got away scot-free. So I think Sarkeesian is one of those people, but I mean, God, look at her face, man. She's already living in hell. I don't need to punish her. I just want her to stop destroying video games.
Who now? You mentioned useful idiots and people who are going to get burnt by this. And maybe you don't have to say names or anything, but are you talking for the most part journalists and people who cover the gaming industry, publications that cover the gaming industry, or maybe even manufacturers themselves, or I'm sorry, producers of video games themselves? I mean, who do you think is going to pay the biggest price? I would say the journalists.
It's going to be all of them. Mainly, yes, the journalists are some of the worst out there, and the game developers that are cowing to Sarkeesian, they're doing it because they're afraid, not because they're evil. Like there's been the controversy over Moot selling out 4chan. Well, listen, right now, this is like I don't have proof of any of this, but there's strong rumors that Zoe Quinn has a team of lawyers, that she is going to be suing about harassment. And so if there is any talk about Gamergate on 4chan, they're going to be recording all of this and targeting Moot personally if anything happens. So he got scared. He got threatened into shutting up about the whole thing. He's not an evil person. He's just scared. And a lot of game developers are scared, and they're really just trying to make art, or they're just trying to make a buck, a decent living, and hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But we'll see. I think it's going to come out that if you were supporting Sarkeesian, that it's going to be a scarlet letter on you. And these journalists, the journalists are the worst of the whole lot. It's like, hey, I'm down for you being corrupt because the video game companies give you free stuff. That's a corruption I can predict. That's a friendly sort of corruption. But this childish irresponsibility, this complete violation of their ethics, and the nasty stuff they've been getting up to right now. It's funny, when Gamergate started out, a lot of people that were involved in Gamergate were saying, "Who's this O.N.E guy? He's conservative, monarchist, whatever." It's like you don't represent. They were sending me a lot of bile, but then everything that the gaming journalists were saying about me was so vile that they actually said, "You know what? Maybe I should give this guy a second chance."
Right. James, can we give people the call-in number and then maybe go to a music break so we can encourage people to call in?
Yeah, sure. The number is 214-272-0408. I'll say that one more time. 214-272-0408.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
All right, folks, we are back.
Great, and we have a caller. We have Nick Redding with us from Men's Rights Edmonton on the line. Nick, how you doing? Got a question for our guest tonight?
I do. Well, actually, not really a question. Davis, I've seen you. I've been watching your stuff on YouTube for a while, and I just wanted to say there was one video where you said that men's rights activists that they should that it's folly for them to be pursuing equality, and I have to agree with you on that. I think that the term equality has been saturated to the point that it means nothing. So yeah, I think it's sort of I would back you up on that.
Could I just say briefly that, like, this is kind of what I was saying earlier, is that, like, I want to have real arguments with real people. And in the past, I've argued with the men's rights movement about certain things. At the same time, when the men's rights movement has been unfairly derided, I've stood next to you and fought against those people, and tried to argue against them. So I do disagree with some of the men's rights movement, and that's transparent. But for this documentary, we're dropping the ideology. It's just about exposing the dishonesty behind the social justice movement. Anyway, sorry, I didn't. Now I'm interrupting you. So go ahead.
No, and it's great. And I mean, the thing is with the, I listened to what you were saying earlier about the complete hypocrisy. Like, religious movements typically do believe the bullshit that they're spewing, whereas the social justice movement doesn't. I mean, they talk about how awful it is to silence women, and then when Janice Fiamingo or what's her name, the right winger woman from the States with the blonde hair. Anyway, they both got
Judgy bitch. Who?
No, not Judgy bitch. She's Canadian.
She's Canadian, of course. Yeah.
The woman from. She's a big name in right-wing politics.
We were just exchanging emails with her the other day, and I can't remember her name for the life of me. Christina Hoff Sommers.
No. No. She's the really aggressive one with blonde hair. She's young. She's thin. Anyway. She got blocked. She got roadblocked at a Canadian university by social justice warriors who are always going on about how you shouldn't silence women, but the only people silencing women are them. Are you familiar with what happened with Janice Fiamingo at the University of Ottawa?
No. Like, there's so many of these bloody things. I'm always behind on them. What happened?
She is an anti-feminist professor at the University of Ottawa. She's got tenure. And she's been giving lectures on feminism, on how feminism is the field of feminism and women's studies in universities is intellectually bankrupt and morally, ethically bankrupt. And so she wouldn't give a talk at Queen's U, and she was heckled all the way through, but she was able to get through it. And then when she went to the University of Ottawa, they just banged noisemakers so she couldn't say what she had to say.
Oh, they're such vile little pieces of dirt, aren't they? Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
Listen, there's the fine young capitalists, and I'd actually heard about these guys 6 months ago, but I didn't connect the dots at first in my head, because 6 months ago, what the fine young capitalists were doing is they were raising some money through Patreon or through Kickstarter or something, raising some money where they said, what we want to do is find somebody that is a quote-unquote minority, a transsexual or somebody with a lot of melanin in their skin or someone with a double X chromosome, which, I'm being pretty transparent. I think this is nonsense. And I could have easily written an article talking about how having different sexual organs does not make you diversity. But they were just raising money, and they were going to give this person a game studio. They're going to, there's going to be different people. They're going to vote on which game sounded the best. And it's bring your diverse voice into gaming. And you know what? I think it's absolutely retarded. But all I would have done, I didn't even bother writing an article about this, but if I had, all I would have done is write about how stupid this is. What Zoe Quinn and some of her connections did was actually smear these people across the media. Because one of their rules was that if you were if you were identifying as a transsexual, you had to be living as a transsexual. And according to Zoe Quinn, this was homophobic. It was their way to prevent guys lying to get into the thing. You know, and there's, and it goes on and on and on. It's a long story, but she was just smearing them because Zoe Quinn wasn't making a profit from the fine young capitalists. Nobody here would have tried to shut them down. We might have made fun of them, but we would not be banging noisemakers if they were giving a speech. We would not be doing subversive manipulation of laws or tax laws to try and shut them down. We'd use our freedom of speech, but hey, we're adults. We can use our words.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just wanted to call in, and I had something I wanted to say to you. I forgot about it, but yeah, keep up the good work, and yeah, thanks for coming on the radio show with us.
Hey, thank you. It's been awesome.
Yeah. All right, see you, man.
All right, next up we've got Iron John. Iron John, go ahead.
Hey, how are you guys this evening?
Just fine.
Good. How you doing?
Hear you just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I've never spoken to. I'm doing great. I've never spoken to Mr. Aurini before, but I've seen some of his videos, and they're very thoughtful on YouTube, from what I've seen.
Oh, thank you. I do think about them a lot before I make them.
Well, I appreciate it. I had hoped one day I'd get to meet you, so I guess today's my lucky day. You've obviously put a lot of time and thought and energy into this whole Anita Sarkeesian thing. But I got to tell you, I think that the average MRA out there is sitting there and looking at this and saying, when is it going to end? I mean, we keep hearing the same horrible things over and over again with Zoe Quinn, Anita Sarkeesian, Gamergate, and it's like a replay of the whole thing with Rebecca Watson. And I think a lot of the MRAs are just wishing it was over with. I'm not, speaking for the whole movement, but is it a mistake to ignore this? Is it really a big deal, or should the MRAs be, a little bit more interested than they are?
Well, this is a question of strategy. See, there's now the clownfish. Supposedly, a friend of mine was telling me this story. Lives in venomous coral that it itself is immune to, and it's brightly colored to attract predators that will then kill themselves on that coral, providing the clownfish with food. And this is basically how these repeated grifters use the system. They provoke these attacks against themselves, and sometimes they manufacture the attacks, and they use that to claim victimhood. And so we're left in this catch-22, where if we don't criticize them, they get to control the narrative. If we criticize them, that proves their narrative. That's why, you know what, we do need to do something. And this is why we're trying to come in on a flank with the Sarkeesian effect. We're not debating her arguments. We're exposing her for the nasty person that she really is.
I got something I want to say about this. I think it's important for a couple reasons why men's rights activists should at least be watching this and talking about it. First of all, this is a feminist, and this is a perfect example of how a feminist grifter operates, as Davis just said. And this touches on so many things about controlling the narrative on all kinds of gender issues, and how these people are using the gaming industry in a cynical way, and this co-option of the gaming industry. And then we see this happen in the atheist movement, and it happening in our university system. It's important that we care about what's going on for that, if for no other reason. But of course, there are other things that are more important. I think what's going on in our education system is huge. I think that what's going on in family courts is huge, and this may not top the list on the things that we should talk about. But it definitely touches. I mean, what do you think, John?
Yeah. See, the thing is, there's been so much coverage in the men's movement about it lately. It seems like it's the most important or the most interesting thing. And I think a lot of guys are more interested in, by guys I mean MRAs and other people involved in the men's movement, are more interested in the real world stuff like the family court system or circumcision. Right. It seems so far away because a lot of us don't work in the game industry. We're not necessarily computer people. So it can be, I have to be honest, it can be tiresome. Right. It doesn't really seem like it's our issues, like it's that important to us. Maybe I'm overstepping my bounds. Maybe it's
not at all.
Well, and it's you know what? It's exhausting. It's like I know the MRAs are apolitical, but there's a saying in conservative circles about depression porn. How so much conservative news writing or blogging is nothing but depression porn, and it's very, very easy for us to fall into that trap. Now, I would. The thing is that, see, when these grifters go against anybody else, like when they go after, when they're manipulating divorce laws, well, I'm never going to get divorced, so I don't care about that. When it's the circumcision issue, again, you have a very small minority that care about that. Everybody else just shrugs their shoulders. The same thing with the universities. Most people don't care about the universities. They're not making a paycheck on the thing, so the grifters get to take over the whole institution. But what's interesting is this time they decide to mess with the wrong people. They decide to mess with gamers, and there is a large swath of people of all political stripes, like a truly diverse crowd that all of a sudden is seeing the grifters for what they are. And that's what's interesting about Gamergate. This is the strategic battle that can change the entire nature of this war, because we've each been fighting our individual battles, and all of a sudden, we're seeing the methodology of the people in this conflict.
That's interesting. You certainly have me an advantage there. I really can't argue that point. The only thing I would like to point out is my own opinion about what I see Anita Sarkeesian as really being. And what I see her as being is a prototype for a next generation of feminist. I don't know if that makes sense. She seems to be an embodiment of everything that was accumulated during the third wave of feminism, which started in the early 1990s. And my guess is this is kind of like a trial run to see how far they can get in the public with it. This is the new wave, the fourth or fifth wave, or whatever they want to call it, of the social justice warrior. And I guess it's like a test run to see how well it will play.
Well, it's absolutely amazing. No, I think you might be onto something there, and that this new wave is really about manipulative leaders and useful idiots. Because look at these people, look at these Tumblr degenerates with their otherkin, their multiple personality disorder, like their you cis shit, white heterosexual male garbage. These people are ill. These people are running around in their 20s and they're peeing in ball pits, which is what happened at the TumblrCon thing. They had a ball pit. First of all, these adults had a ball pit, and somebody actually peed in the bloody thing. Now we can laugh at them, but they're actually being very, very damaged by all of this. Can you imagine what these people are going to look like in 20 years? And it's the same thing with these. There's the feminist writing. The feminist writing about how getting STDs is cool. Do you guys recall that article from way back when?
No, not quite sure.
Yeah.
It was mainstream. It was like a New York feminist online publication about how herpes isn't so bad. It reminds you of that really cool guy you met at the club. Like there's long-term effects to believing in this nonsense.
Yeah. All right, John, we got to try to get some of the callers on here. Thanks a lot for calling in, as always.
Oh, okay.
Great caller. Is there anything else really quick you wanted to add before you left?
No, just thanks for taking my call, and I hope to be able to speak to Mr. Aurini again in the future. He has a lot of good ideas.
Oh, cheers, man. If you're ever in Calgary, give me a shout.
Yeah, sure.
People, call in. Yeah. Thanks a lot for calling in, John. Appreciate it. People, the phone number is 214-272. 212. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You say it. You say it, Jay.
214-272.
Yeah, I'll jump in too. It's
0408. I'll say that again. 214-272-0408. Folks, if you tried to call in and weren't able to get through before, it's because we already had a guest on the line. Feel free at this time. First come, first serve. 214-272-0408.
Good. We got about another 20 minutes left in the show. Let's talk more about the movie. Again, we definitely plug that while you're here. You expect to have this out, and you told me 6 months. Is that correct?
Yes, which if anybody out there knows about making films, that is extremely ambitious. Basically, what I'm going to be doing, anytime that we're not interviewing people, I'm going to be editing footage. I'm going to be editing to the point where I want to kill myself. It is going to be an absolute nightmare to put this together, but I'm looking forward to it. As much as it's going to suck, but you know, I was in the Army. I'm mentally ill. I enjoy things that suck.
Hello, caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Who's this?
Hey. Fatherless.
Oh, Fatherless. How you doing? Nice to have you on again. How have you been?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. Great.
I know half these fucking yeah, my question was, what's his advice for MRAs that work in the games industry?
Ooh. Well, what could you elaborate? What do you mean? What's my advice?
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of how do I say this? I mean, it's such an obvious and easy. Like you were talking about how you think only 10% of the people in the industry are actually true believers. You know, I'll tell you up in Boston.
Let me add to that. There's another 30% of people who are. Can we swear on this show?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There's another 30% of people who are totally useless cunts, and they will just they don't even have. They're whatever. They're not even real people. You know, they're NPCs. They'll just go. They just go with the wind, and so that 30% plus the 10% true believers. Yeah, you got to look out for that 40%. So sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I mean that sounds more accurate because I mean you paint a picture like, well, when you say 10%, you know it almost paints a picture like it's a paper tiger, and it just requires some critical mass of people to like realize that they're not alone. You know. But, like, really, these issues, they force people to talk about them, you know? You can't go to a game dev meetup or a conference without people wanting to talk about gender issues from this very, very particular perspective. And I don't think I can hide the grimaces on my face anymore when people talk about this shit, you know? And it's like, it becomes very difficult. It's like, do I even want to bother with this, you know? So it's
got to be an individual call. I mean, like from the 48 Laws of Power, there's certainly interaction with boldness. If you're going to do something, do it 100%. And SAS motto: "He who dares wins." But there's also the principle: think as you like, but do as others do. You know, there's a time that. Think as you like, but behave like others. You know, there's a time to break from the crowd, and there's a time when you need to go along to get along. And, this isn't even about, just to be a decent human being. You don't want to be like that new atheist that starts talking about atheism every 5 minutes. You don't want to be bringing your politics into every single conversation that ever happens. So it's
MRAs are pretty good at not doing that.
You know what they are. It's the annoying thing is that MRAs have a reputation for always talking about MRA stuff because it's an MRA blog. You know, the blog talks about it all the time. That's the point of having a blog.
Right. We're accused of a lot of things that we don't do. But that's a whole other show there.
I'd say that there is a time when standing up, it will earn you a lot of enemies, but in the long run, it will pay off. But you gotta play it by ear. You gotta have the instincts about when it's the right time to stand up and when it's not. Now, I think, you know what, if you do get exposed, or like they find out that you're reading A Voice for Men and they say, oh, you fucking no. Never ever apologize to these people. If you get sucked in to this battle, if you are now fighting against the feminists even though you didn't want to be, don't back off. Don't turn. They will shoot you in the back if you turn around.
Yeah,
all you can do is move forward.
When you do that, they smell blood when you apologize for things you shouldn't apologize for.
Probably a smart idea to avoid it for most people, but if you do get sucked into it, you can't avoid it. Go forward and take them on as best you can.
So are you just a gamer followerless, or did you actually work?
Well,
in the
no. I
gaming
mean, I do. I'm a contractor in the industry. So it's just like it's like any politics you reveal is just one more reason for people not to hire you. You know
what? So from someone who's just like you're run-of-the-mill industry person, which I assume
exactly.
You are.
So
what
and
do
the thing is, it's like people. The problem with the indie scene is that people think because they're making personal games that they have to suffuse it with their politics, which means they only want to make games with the same politics.
Right.
And for all the talk about diversity, there's only one particular perspective, that political games ever seem to come from.
What's the environment for gamers, for people who work in the industry? Is there a sense that it's just too sensitive of a topic to talk about sometimes? Or is there
the last game dev meetup I went to was right when the Zoe Quinn thing was breaking, and we do a thing called lightning talks, and this one developer got up and basically said, "Okay, I'm going to give a talk about women in games, and okay, guys, we need your help. It's getting exhausting. You all need to go to Twitter. You all need to defend Zoe Quinn." Et cetera, and here's 10 things that you can do to help women in games. And I was just sitting there going and they just let this stuff fly, or someone will come up and be like, oh, I'm working on a game it's got all female characters, it's really subversive, my teachers are going to love it. Subversive.
Your teachers love the subversive stuff. Guess what, honey, it's not subversive.
Is there a sense that there's a lot of eye rolling going on when people say this at these conventions? I mean, do you look back and see guys saying, "Oh, geez, another social justice warrior. I wish this guy would shut the heck up"?
No.
Is there an undertone of opposition or?
No, there's not.
Well, I'm surprised.
Like
about
zero.
That.
Every once in a while, maybe people will It's it's not like how it wasn't like how it was in college, where feminists do crazy shit and they'll have a laugh. This is people take this shit seriously. It's like even if you're not really like a card carrying feminist, the men that I see around are still like these kind of blue pill white knight types. Like, oh, I'm a little conservative, but I think it's good to watch out for women. Blah, blah, blah.
Right. I mean, I would think that by now there would be even more because of course from MRA quarters, and and from Davis here and other people, the atheist quarters with Thunderfoot and the Amazing Atheists, they're pointing this stuff out. They're doing videos. They're talking about. I'm surprised that there isn't more people in the gaming industry who just even if just behind closed doors or standing at the urinal next to somebody else who's taking a piss. You'd think that people would just be talking
when I talk to people behind closed doors, it seems like they're also true believers too. It's just a question of not just being progressive, but whether or not you're, sufficiently progressive, or
I
this
see,
very
right.
narrow idea. It's tough.
Right.
I mean, it's tough. Like it's hard to know even where the it's really hard to even know like where it goes. Like where it would be. My real question is like how do you identify potential potential allies in network situations? Like, I wonder if this guy might actually have the same feelings about this as me. Like what's a neutral way
it
to
seems to
sort
me
of
like they, because of all the hysteria, they've just made it difficult to talk to say any kind of criticism at all of Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn without getting shouted
well, I
down,
mean, like
or
my,
that being a really awkward social moment.
Yeah, I mean, my email lists are I share with people like Zoe Quinn. You know what I mean? And they'll send messages about what they're up to. And this whole Gamergate thing has been completely silent. And it's eerie. It's really eerie. And you just don't want to be the person to break the ice.
You know what? Because these people are bloody scary. They are destroying people's careers. Frankly, I've taken a lot of flack from these people already. And it's not the type of stuff I can go public about, because what it essentially boils down to is people stabbing me in the back because they're afraid. And I'm not going to go public about who those people are because they are afraid. They are the victims. They are not the bullies in all of this. But yeah, like, I've been taking flack from this. I knew I was going to take flack, so I, put on a thick wool shirt before we started the whole thing. But yeah, these are scary.
Courtney Stanton is from my town. That horrible piece of trash.
Let's talk about the people losing their careers and some of the retribution that we see going on in the gaming
one last
industry.
little bit. If you are in the gaming, there are a few voices, a few independents that are speaking out about this. And I think if you want to connect with people, like either you need to be open that you are pro Gamergate or not. There's no middle ground on this. So if you are still in a position where you can't be open about it, that's okay. What you can do is contact the people who are open and start forming your own informal network to fight against the that's probably that's probably the best move, is just to find these people and start figuring shit out. Yeah. And you got to keep yourself safe, because a dead soldier is useless, right?
The who?
Like, a dead soldier is useless. That's not going to win any war.
Yeah, fair enough.
Discretion is the better part of valor.
Well, I just, who's taking the biggest brand? Just journalists who question this, or do they get fired? Do these people mob their publications and then get people fired that way? Or if you could give me some examples.
I almost feel like I'd be better off posing as a feminist and just going everywhere and recording everything.
It's really that bad. Oh wow, it's really that bad. You're right. These people are scary. The feminists, social justice warriors have used terror tactics since time immemorial. They go after people's careers. They have no problems engaging in libel and serious relational aggression. That's what they do. And when they target somebody, they really do pull out all the stops. I've seen it happen dozens of times in my life, and it actually happened to me once at a job. It's not pretty. These are not pretty people. They are ruthless. And that's why I'm buying. My heart goes out to these people in the gaming industry who are having this neat, wonderful community of theirs being ripped apart.
They really think that they're independent from coercive control when they're in the indie games industry. They really think, because they're outside of corporate control, that there's no other way that anybody can control them.
Yeah, that's false.
It's just, and then they only think progress can go in one direction.
And in this case, it's a death spiral downwards.
Yeah, I mean, really, because what they're really doing to their industry is making it so that no one can actually hire anybody. Like, you can't talk to women because you don't know which one is going to be realizes that she can make more of a name for herself as a professional victim than actually having marketable skills. You can't talk to women at game dev meetups. You know,
and this is actually really
you
hurting
can't work
the
with
old
them. You
school
can't hire
gamers.
them. You know, because you have to be damn cautious about everything. They're just a big walking liability.
I know women in gaming that have this problem all the time. That they can't. They always have to say, listen, I'm not a feminist. I've been in video gaming for a long time. I'm not going to rat you out for sexist jokes. I'm not going to. Yeah, like I'm a real human being. I'm not a diversity hire. I'm not a victim case waiting to sue the company.
Yeah, and you know it's tough because they make the environment more toxic. But it's not only that. I mean, you know, in a sane world, people would realize that you can't discuss politics with someone for more than 10 minutes without coming up with something that you're going to disagree passionately. You can't make politics your criteria for hiring people. You know, unless your game is overtly political. You can't just be like, oh, well, you know, you're not qualified to do our art because we don't particularly agree with your view on money policy. You know, like, what?
Yeah, I think this goes back to us, like, what I was saying about us being such babies nowadays. Like, the fact that somebody yeah, and you're right. If you talk to freaking anybody, you will eventually have a disagreement in politics. Last time I was at my folks' place, we got into a 30-minute long argument over dinner about certain policies of the Canadian prison system. And it was great. It was fun. Because we're mature adults that like having intellectual conversations. But you know what? I was having a conversation with the guy at the bar, and the bartender comes over and says, no political conversations. This is the place where you get drunk and forget about your terrible job. No political no thinking here. Talk about the sports teams.
Right.
The modern degenerate people for a degenerate age.
When I was at GDC, there was this, and I hate the term, but there was a true mangina, and he teaches somewhere up in, I want to say Vermont, and he was complaining that his students, you know, all their ideas about games are all the same, and they don't have any original concepts, blah, blah, blah. All they do is regurgitate what they've been spoon-fed. Then the second conversation happened, and he was getting all inspired and blah, blah, blah. We need to get more women in games. And by this time, I was already drunk. I was like, why do we need to get more women in games? Have you noticed all the homeless people we walk around here in San Francisco? Why don't we equalize that?
Yeah, homeless quest.
You know, seriously, like let's make sure that women are equally represented there. I just went off, you know, like I talked about the draft and, you know, all the different. He was trying to convince him about the patriarchy, and his points are just so easily refutable. And he just got pissed off and called me an asshole and walked away. He's like, people like you are, what's wrong with this industry? Everything, you need to get out, you need to go away, and you need to get fucked. And it was really funny because I only did this because it was a debate in front of a kid that was kind of neutral, you know? And he was listening because his girlfriend's a feminist, is always trying to guilt him into shit. So it was for the kid that was watching. But this guy, you know,
you need to get out of this industry. You know, dude,
Yeah.
The industry is actually diverse. It's not a government agency. It's a free market industry with hundreds of developers. So who are you to say you need to get out of this industry, pal? You know, you totalitarian monster. Use your words, not your fists, bud.
Yeah, well, he was whining that his students were all the same, and then he bumped into somebody who had a different perspective, and he wanted to be driven out.
Yeah, it's like the ideological purity is a big deal with these people. It's a very big deal.
Yeah, and so this canard that it's just a game journalist, I'm not so sure. I think there's a lot of true developers amongst even the people that do it, you know? I would like to be wrong.
I'm often far too optimistic, but yeah. I hope you're wrong. I hope so. I hope it's just people that don't want to give it a voice to it or just don't realize how toxic it is. See, I think that's another thing that that thanks to Gamergate, a lot of people are realizing how toxic all of this
damage.
Well, most people at some level think that feminism is a movement about equality, and the debate is whether or not women have achieved equality or whether or not there's still a few areas where they need to catch up. Almost everyone thinks that. There's very few people who will. I've never met anybody who actually, who understands that feminism is basically a thriving and well-established hate movement.
What drives me nuts is I'm often, for brevity's sake, forced to agree that second wave feminism was good. It was third wave where it went. No, women didn't have women have had equal rights since about 750 AD. And that's written into law. They've had equal rights before 750 AD. Women getting the vote.
It's never been legal to rape anybody. We don't live in a rape culture. These are all hate-filled ideas that are pushed onto the public because we have these ideologues who've dominated the entire narrative concerning gender
feminism. It was never necessary. It never contributed to anything except.
Women are not broke.
Yeah, when women got the vote, that happened. About 7 years after all men got the vote. It was part of a political movement of universal suffrage. Women and feminists had next to nothing to do with it. They just patted themselves on the back because they got to wear pretty outfits and march down the street and get lots of attention from politicians. Yeah, and burn things and throw rocks at the police and act like spoiled little brats. The slut walks, that is the face of feminism. Anita Sarkeesian, that is the face of feminism, and this is why Queen Victoria said that if she could, she'd have to be dragged out of the street and whipped.
All right, we're gonna end on that note. It is close to 11 o'clock. It is close to 11 o'clock. Thanks for coming on, Follow. Always nice to have you on the show. Please call in again sometime.
Appreciate it.
It's been a great show. Davis, thank you for joining us. And people, please, when I put the YouTube up for this show, I'll be sure to put a link to his blog.
Yeah, this is being a crowd-funded documentary. So we are counting, there's a lot of people out there. We're not asking for a lot of money. A little bit of cash from everybody, like $1 a month. We can make this movie. And with Patreon, we're responsible. You can see what we're doing every month to make sure we're earning our keep.
And, of course, I'll put it. So, sure, absolutely, yeah. And of course, we're going to put in a link to the AVFM fundraiser, which we're having now. Please consider contributing. It's so important. We've got big plans next year. We're going to have another conference. It's going to be even more expensive, but it's going to be a great year. We've accomplished a lot. We plan to accomplish even more. Again, Davis, thanks for having on coming on the show. And maybe we'll have you on again sometime. If there's any interesting developments, we'll keep in touch. James, do we have any advice for our listeners?
Absolutely. Take the red pill.
Word.